Hi, and welcome back to
Inspired to Game. I'm Sean.
And I am Lola. Today we are talking about Kinfire Delve, Vainglory's Grotto. Now before we get to our review, we'll give you a quick overview of how to play. Kinfire Delve, Vainglory's Grotto is a game for 1 to 2 players, unless you have a second box and you can play it with up to 4. You each play seekers dispatched to one of the wells of Atios. Your goal is to work as a team to delve deep into the well and defeat its master at the bottom. To do this, you must tackle each challenge card around the well one at a time. Each player will have a certain amount of cards that they will start in their hand, depending on the number of players. Each character has special abilities, and each has a lantern that you may have an opportunity to light through the game. Each card, too, has special abilities that can be used strategically. To attempt a challenge, you will use one of your cards of the same color of the challenge that you're going for. The other player may play 1 or 2 cards to boost the numbers and help you achieve success. After you've chosen your card that you're going to play, you will roll the dice. For each color upright on the dice that matches the color that you've played in the challenge you're going for, you get to add an additional number towards your success. If you have met the number of the challenge, then you have succeeded, in which case you will get its corresponding reward. Very often this lets you delve further into the well by discarding more cards into the discard pile. In order to get to the bottom of the well to defeat the master, you must work through the entire well pile. As you have defeated a challenge, a new one takes its place. Now, however, if you have failed the challenge, then you get its corresponding penalty. This can be the loss of life or losing some progress in your delving down the well. Whether or not you were successful, you'll discard the card that you played this round, and if you weren't successful, you'll place tokens on that challenge indicating how much progress you've made on it. Note that you don't get to draw up. As you work through your cards, you will get less and less in your hand. The only way to get new cards is to draw an exhaustion card. This is always bad. Exhaustion cards make it harder for you to win the game, and it can even make you lose almost immediately. Now, in this game, you start with a certain amount of health as depicted on a die. As you proceed, you'll consecutively lose health. Health is shared, so if on one player's turn they face a penalty which loses health, this will affect everyone. Once you get to 0 health, you automatically and immediately lose the game. Once you've worked through enough of the well cards that you go to replace one of the 4 surrounding the well, and you cannot, that triggers the final boss battle. Remove any challenges that remain and put out a special 4 surrounding the master. Now, the master has no vulnerability to any of the colors. You must tackle at least one of these challenges surrounding the master before you can attack them. As you defeat some of these surrounding cards, you'll be able to expose a vulnerability of the master. Say, for instance, find that the master is now vulnerable to green, and now you can start attacking it with green cards. To win the game, you must defeat the master before losing all health. If you have done so, that means the world is safe from Vainglory as she is held down in her well of darkness.
You still have the box.
I still have the box. I have this box because it is gorgeous. I love this box. If you can tell, it has gold foil all over it, and so do the cards. The quality of these components are top notch. They're absolutely beautiful. Like the box.
The artwork on everything, the backs of the cards have gold foil, the front of the cards have wonderful artwork. You get into the main challenges, Vainglory actually has, I wouldn't call it, it's almost UV, a spot UV. There's a raised section of the artwork which is a texture, and it's glossy, and it's all just glorious.
And that's what first really attracted me with this game. It's got such great table presence because of that, for what is in essence a card game. Now, we have to preface this whole review with that we have never played anything in the Kinfire universe. We've never played Kinfire Chronicles or anything like that, so this was our introduction to it, and we weren't quite sure what to expect. But I can tell you, we had a ton of fun with this game. It is tense, it is exciting, and what I love most of all, it has a really nice thinky puzzle to it. And what's neat about that is the puzzle shifts and it changes, because as you deal with each challenge that comes up, a new one is placed, and they all together provide their own puzzle, because some of them you're going to want to work on first, some of them you have to work on first, you have to prioritize things, but you're also limited by the cards you may or may not have in your hands as well, and there's just a delightful puzzle to figuring it all out.
As each element is removed, the puzzle changes.
Exactly, so it's an ever-shifting puzzle, and it's an element that I really, really love about the game, because there's so much to think about, and you really have to work together. In order to win, you have to really work on each other's strengths, because we each have different cards with each a different skill set, and to work off of each other is essential. But at the same time, this game does not lend to quarterbacking, because you don't know what each other's cards really do. And you don't know which ones they have on hand either. So everybody has full autonomy on choosing what they do without being directed around by other players around the table. And that is really nice as well.
And it's a game of give and take. You really have to plan your move, figure out that puzzle, and what can you do that's going to minimize the damage to the shared health die, and minimize the number of cards that have to get thrown out or used, I guess I should say, because the more cards you burn through, the more exhaustion you're going to get, and 3 of the same exhaust card is a lose condition. The consumed card specifically, I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and the symphony is one of the worst ones, because that's advances with every time that you fail a challenge. And these challenges tend to have around 10, a little bit more, a little bit less, but most of your cards are maybe 2 or 3. So you're really needing to play around with your abilities, and you have to be careful about using those boosts at critical times, because as Sean mentioned, you have to be careful to conserve your cards, because those exhaustion cards are critically bad, and you'll need to get them at some point, but you want to minimize it. So it's really, really about maximizing those cards, and it's a really fantastic challenge. Each time we've played it, we said at least once or twice in the game, like, yeah, there's no way we're doing this one. No, we have no chance of this. No chance at all. But we've actually been able to win, but it's always been by the skin of our teeth, which is always such a fantastic feeling, to just pull off that win that you didn't think that you could. Now, I really love the theme to this, and I feel it really shines through in the gameplay. So as you're working through the deck, you're putting cards around the inner core card, which is your master that you're trying to defeat. But first you have to go through all the cards one at a time, at a time, at a time. But as you're shuffling down, as you're going through them, it really does have that sense of tunneling down. And if you read the flavor text on each card too, they add to that sense, that ambiance of this Vainglory's grotto and the hold that she's trying to have on you. And there's a magical element to that. And because of the way that the game unfolds, so as you're successfully completing challenges, you're very often getting to discard 3 or maybe even up to 5 cards at a time. It means it takes several plays of the game in order to actually see all the content, because in each game you're skipping large swaths of it.
Yeah, it took several games before we learned that there was a card that actually let you heal.
Yeah.
Because we would always delve right past them.
Our first game we actually won, but we are down to 1 health. So we actually achieved an achievement there. And there's a luck component to this too, obviously with what cards you're getting, but then it's that strategy of how you play with it. But the dice is a nice element too. So as I mentioned, you're working on these cards that require 10 or more to defeat them, and you're playing 2, 3, but you get to roll those dice which can roll 2 or 3 or 4 of the same and help you out. You know, if you can actually roll well. dig. But that adds to the excitement of it too. So you do the best you can, trying to attack a challenge to the best of your abilities, and you roll and you hope to roll really well in order to succeed. But you're also choosing which challenges to do based on what's going to be the least harmful penalty for you as well, because that's going to always play a role. There's one card where your penalty is lose 10 health. Well, you start with 10, so if you don't manage to do this card all in one go, you fail. But there are different abilities that really come into play, like Asha has an ability to discard a challenge or 2 without having to do it. So if you manage to get that card or light your lantern that has that ability, it used in the right time, it can be very helpful.
Such as when you have a trap that, when you succeed, causes you to pull back 7 cards into the well.
Yes, and that's a good point too, is that there are some traps that the rewards aren't rewards at all, and that makes it challenging as well, especially if it has a detrimental effect that makes you want to get rid of it. Yeah. But yeah, so there's a lot of really interesting things going on with this game. We absolutely loved it. It's a blast to play.
And on top of the combat and the puzzles and the traps, there's also just plain old events where you can, instead of fighting against a challenge, you can just take the event.
And sometimes it gives you a bit of a benefit, sometimes not so much. So there are some varied elements there too. Yeah. And that final boss battle is a ton of fun, and it's tense. It's exciting to go after it and just not know if you have any hope. So Kinfire Delve can be found in retail right now, but what's interesting to know is they have a plan for more content within the line of this. So there is a box coming out in spring called Scorn Stockade, and then one coming out in summer that's called Callus's Lab. So each one will have a different master to defeat, because it comes from a different well that you need to hold them back from emerging in this world, and each will, to my understanding, also have 2 separate seekers as well. So if you enjoy this as well and get one of those, and they can be combined if you're wanting to play up to 4, and then you can switch around the seekers that you're using. So there's some variability in that. That sounds really exciting.
And eventually with all 3 of them you get the 6 seekers that are from the Kinfire Chronicles.
Yeah, which we know nothing about.
Except for that, there's 6 of them.
And maybe we should look into it a bit more.
We should look into it.
Thank you so much for watching today.
If you've enjoyed this content, please support the channel by subscribing if you haven't already.
And as always, happy gaming, folks. With the other player may boost the more is to draw a suffering. I want to say a suffering card. Suffering. To win the game, you must defeat the master, thus holding them down.
That's it, man. Game over, man.
You do that exceptionally well. That's not a compliment.
Bill Paxton.
World is safe from Vainglory as she is held down in her well of darkness, where she belongs. Because, you know, she's not good for people. Yep. Glory in her grotto, keeping the world safe from her, you know, machinations, mischief, things like that. Thank you so much for watching today.
Yep.
Do we want to do? Yep. Sorry, I just sprung that on you. I really did. All right.
Let me think of Hitchhiker's Guide. But maybe it wasn't.